Hey guys, tonight we are going to get dressed. Slowly, very, very slowly. We're traveling back to a time before fast fashion, before clothing came from a store, and before anyone had ever heard the phrase laundry day. We're going to piece together, layer by layer, the surprisingly colorful and exceptionally tidy world of Viking clothing. Now, let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive this. It's not the raiding or the long sea voyages that would get you. It's the profound lack of Wi-Fi and the fact that your mattress hasn't been invented yet. But the clothes are cozier than you might think. Asterisk. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your quiet support makes all these sleepy journeys possible. And while you're at it, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always a little magical to think of us all unwinding in different corners of the world, at different hours of the day and night. Asterisk now. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk. The first thing you notice isn't a sight, but a smell. It's the scent of old smoke, clinging to everything like a heavy blanket. Not the sharp, acrid smoke of a disaster, but the deep, earthy perfume of a fire that has been burning, more or less, for generations. It's the smell of warmth, of cooking, of security. It's mixed with the faint, almost sweet scent of dried herbs hanging from the rafters, and the musty, comforting aroma of wool and sleeping bodies. You stir, not because of an alarm, but because the world around you is gently beginning to stir as well. Asterisk. You open your eyes. The world is bathed in a soft, gray light. Above you, massive wooden beams, blackened by years of soot, stretch into the gloom of a high-peaked roof. There are no windows, not in the way you'd understand them, just a long, narrow opening at the very peak of the roof, a smoke hole that allows a column of pale morning light to pierce the darkness, illuminating a swirling galaxy of dust motes. This single beam of light lands squarely on the heart of your home, the long, central fire pit, where embers from last night's fire still glow a gentle, pulsing orange. Asterisk. You are on a raised wooden platform that runs along the wall of the vast, open room. It serves as your bench, your storage, and your bed. Your mattress is a dense pile of straw, perhaps some springy heather, covered with thick, heavy animal furs. A sheepskin, its fleece, still rich with lanolin, has kept you warm through the cool Scandinavian night. You push it aside, and the air, chilly and damp, immediately raises goosebumps on your arms. Around you, in the dimness, are other shapes. Your family, maybe 10, 15, even 20 other people who share this single, cavernous space called a longhouse. Some are still asleep, wrapped in their own cocoons of wool and fur. Others are beginning to move, their sleepy murmurs a soft counterpoint to the gentle crackle of the fire as someone adds a few dry logs. Asterisk. This is life. Communal, close, and utterly without privacy. There are no bedrooms, no doors to close. Your entire existence is lived in this shared space. Historians still wonder if these sleeping platforms were partitioned in any way, perhaps with a hanging piece of hide or woven textile to create a sliver of personal space. Or was the very concept of privacy a luxury that simply hadn't been considered yet? For you, it's just normal. The sound of your father's snoring, the quiet cough of your grandmother, the rustle of your siblings turning over, it's all just part of the morning's gentle symphony. Asterisk. It's time to get dressed. The first layer is always the most important. It's the one that sits against your skin, the one that has to be soft enough for comfort, but strong enough for work. You reach for it, folded neatly on a wooden chest at the foot of your sleeping space. It's your undertunic, or cirque. Asterisk. You pull the garment over your head. The fabric is linen, and it feels cool and smooth against your skin. It's not the buttery soft pre-washed linen of the 21st century. This is a sturdier, homespun textile woven with a visible, slightly uneven texture. It has a satisfying weight to it. Years of washing in streams with harsh lye soap and beating against rocks have softened its fibers considerably, but it still carries the rugged soul of the flax plant from which it was made. The color is a natural, creamy off-white, the color of undyed sun-bleached linen. It's a simple T-shaped garment, constructed from rectangles of fabric, with triangular gussets under the arms to allow for a greater range of motion. It's practical. It has to be. Asterisk, the tunic falls to just below your knees, a loose but not baggy fit. This isn't about fashion. It's about function. This layer protects your outer garments, which are much harder to clean from the oils and sweat of your body. It is your single most washed piece of clothing, and its sturdy construction is a testament to the weaver who made it. As you stand up on the cool, packed earth floor, the linen shifts with you. This simple, humble garment is the foundation upon which your entire identity for the day will be built. It's a blank canvas, and a surprisingly clean one, too. One of the lesser-known facts about Viking hygiene is that they were considered remarkably clean by the standards of the time, bathing weekly on a day that was literally called washing day. So while the longhouse might be smoky, you, at least, are starting the day fresh. You take a deep breath of the smoky, familiar air. The day has begun. The cool air of the longhouse is a constant, gentle reminder that your single layer of linen is not enough. It's a fine and noble fabric, but its job is to be the buffer, the quiet diplomat between your skin and the real workhorse of your wardrobe. Now, you need warmth. You need protection. You need wool. You pad across the cool, packed earth floor to the large wooden chest that holds your family's clothing. Lifting the heavy lid, you release the faint, earthy scent of stored textiles. Inside, everything is folded with a surprising neatness. This isn't a messy pile. These are valuable, handcrafted items, each one representing hundreds of hours of labor. Asterisk, you reach for your woolen overtunic. The difference in texture is immediate. Where the linen was smooth and cool, the wool is substantial, textured, and alive with a faint, latent warmth. You run your hand over the surface. It's a tabby weave, simple and strong, but the threads are thick and full of character. It's not soft like modern merino wool, which has been bred for centuries to be gentle. This is the wool of old Norse sheep, hardy animals built to survive harsh winters. The fabric has a slight halo of fuzzy fibers and a certain bristly integrity. It's not exactly itchy. The linen under tunic prevents that, but you can feel its rugged personality. It's a garment that promises to do a job, and do it well. Asterisk, this wool is a minor miracle of natural engineering. The sheep it came from possessed a dulo coat fleece. There was a long, coarse outer layer of guard hairs, which were excellent at shedding water and dirt, and a fine, soft, insulating undercoat. A skilled spinner would know how to separate these, or blend them, to create yarn for different purposes. A thread made mostly of the undercoat would be used for garments worn closer to the skin, while a thread rich with the tough guard hairs would be perfect for a weather-resistant outer cloak. Your tunic feels like a masterful blend of both, soft enough for comfort, tough enough for life. A quiet, everyday masterpiece. Asterisk, you pull the woolen tunic over your head, over the linen one. The weight of it settles on your shoulders, a comforting and familiar pressure. The world immediately feels a few degrees warmer. The loose cut is similar to your undertunic, but it's a bit shorter, perhaps falling to your mid-thigh. This is a practical consideration, allowing for ease of movement when you're working, walking, or inevitably, climbing into a boat. The sleeves are long and straight, ending at your wrists. As you adjust the fit, you notice the subtle, almost greasy feel of the wool. That's the lanolin. Asterisk, lanolin is the natural wax secreted by sheep, and it's what makes their wool so water-resistant. This is where a great historical debate comes to life in your wardrobe. Did Viking Age people wash all the lanolin out of their wool for a softer, drier feel? Or did they intentionally leave some in to create a more weatherproof garment? The answer is likely both, depending on the item's purpose. Your tunic seems to have struck a happy medium. There's just enough lanolin left in the fibers to make it shrug off a light drizzle or the damp morning mist, but not so much that it feels oily or heavy. It's a very clever compromise, a testament. 2 generations of accumulated wisdom about how to stay warm and dry in a world that is often cold and wet. It smells faintly of sheep, wood smoke, and the outdoors, the scent of home. Asterisk. Now you are wearing the 2 foundational fabrics of your world, linen and wool. They are a perfect partnership. The linen is hydrophilic, meaning it loves water. It absorbs sweat from your body, pulling moisture away from your skin to keep you dry and comfortable. The wool, on the other hand, is hydrophobic. It repels water from the outside, keeping rain and mist at bay. But its true magic is that it can absorb a great deal of moisture into the core of its fibers without feeling wet to the touch. And it continues to insulate even when damp. Anyone who has ever been caught in a sudden rain shower knows the life-saving importance of this property. Asterisk. Linen comes from a plant, the slender blue-flowered flax. It represents the earth, the sun, the patient work of the harvest. Wool comes from an animal, a living, breathing creature that wanders the hillsides. It represents the herd, the pastoral rhythm of the seasons, the breathing warmth of life. To create the linen, the flax stalks had to be redded, a wonderfully gentle word for being left to rot in a pond or field, then broken, scutched, and hackled to release the long, silky fibers. The wool had to be shorn from the sheep, cleaned of its worst impurities, and then carded or combed to align its fibers. Both then had to be spun, endlessly, patiently, with a drop spindle, a small weighted tool that you've seen in the hands of women since you were a small child. It is a constant, hypnotic motion, the very heartbeat of the household, turning raw fiber into strong, usable thread. Asterisk. Standing there in your 2 simple layers, you are a walking story of the land around you. You are wearing the summer sun in your linen and the deep warmth of the flock in your wool. These garments are not disposable. You might own only 2 or 3 tunics in total. They will be worn until they are threadbare, then patched, then repurposed into smaller items, and finally, when they can be nothing else, they will become cleaning rags. Every single thread is precious. You smooth down the front of your tunic. It's a good, strong garment, but it's a bit plain. Just a simple, functional layer of wool. The next decision of the day is a far more exciting one. What color will you wear? Now that you're dressed in your foundational layers, it's time to add personality. The common image of the Viking Age is often one of drab browns, grays, and muddy earth tones. A world of sensible, somber clothing for sensible, somber people. But that image is, for the most part, a modern invention. The truth, you know, is far more vibrant. You move back to the large wooden chest, its lid still open, and rummage deeper, past the spare undertunics and the heavy work trousers. You find them, the outer tunics, folded with care, glowing with a surprising richness of color, even in the dim longhouse light. Asterisk. This is where your personal tastes, your family's wealth, and the resources of the surrounding landscape are put on display. You pull out one of the garments. It's another woolen tunic, designed to be worn over the one you have on now, perhaps as a final layer of warmth, or simply for show. But this one is different. It's dyed a deep, satisfying shade of blue. This isn't a flat, uniform color, like a modern chemical dye would produce. It has a subtle, living variation to it. In the thin beam of light from the smoke hole, you can see hints of lighter and darker threads, a gentle heathered effect that speaks of a natural dyeing process. Asterisk. This beautiful blue almost certainly came from woad, a leafy plant that looks a bit like spinach and grows readily in this climate. The process of extracting the color is a strange and smelly kind of magic. The leaves have to be harvested, crushed, and fermented in a vat, often with stale urine to create the necessary alkaline environment. It's not a glamorous process. In fact, the woad vat was probably kept at a very respectable distance from the longhouse. But the result is this stunning, color-fast blue, a color associated with the sky and the sea. You hold it up. It's a good, strong color. Asterisk next to it in the chest is another tunic, this one a warm, sunny yellow. It's as cheerful as a summer meadow. This color comes from a plant known as weld, or sometimes dyer's rocket. It's a tall, weedy plant with small, pale flowers. But when its leaves and stems are boiled in water, they release a brilliant, clear yellow. It was one of the most common and accessible dyes available. A splash of sunshine that anyone with a bit of foraging knowledge could create. You can almost smell the faint, hay-like scent of the plant still clinging to the wool fibers. Asterisk, you dig a little deeper and find the true luxury item. It's a smaller piece of fabric, perhaps a decorative band for trimming a sleeve or a neckline, and it's dyed a breathtakingly rich red. This is the color of power, of wealth, of blood and life, and it is much, much harder to come by. This particular shade of red was likely achieved using madder root. Madder doesn't grow this far north. It had to be imported, traded for, brought on ships from the south, likely from Francia or Anglo-Saxon lands. The roots of the plant are dried and ground into a powder, which, when simmered with wool in a dye pot, creates a range of colors from pale pink to a deep, fiery crimson. Depending on the mordant used, the substance that helps the dye bind to the fiber. Owning a garment dyed with madder red is a quiet but clear statement. It says you are connected to the wider world. It says you have things to trade. Asterisk, there are other colors too. Greens could be made by first dyeing the yarn yellow with weld and then dipping it in the blue woad vat. A surprising variety of browns, golds, and oranges could be coaxed from onion skins, a humble and readily available resource. Walnuts, tree bark, and even certain types of lichen could be used to create a whole palette of earthy, subtle tones. Historians and archaeologists still debate the full range of colors available. Were certain colors reserved for specific social classes? Did a particular shade signify one's allegiance to a certain chieftain? The sagas sometimes mention colored clothing, but they rarely give us a detailed fashion guide. We are left to piece together the story from fragments of textiles found in graves, stained by the soil but still clinging to the ghost of their former glory. Asterisk, you decide on the blue tunic. It's your favorite. You pull it on over your other two layers. It's slightly shorter and perhaps a bit more fitted than the undyed tunic, designed to show off the color. The sleeves might be 3/4 length, allowing the sleeves of the tunic beneath to show at the wrists, creating a pleasing layered effect. The neckline is a simple keyhole opening, but it's embellished with a bit of decorative stitching in a contrasting color, maybe a bright yellow thread. This small touch, this bit of embroidery, is another sign of care and value. It's a tiny personal flourish in a world of practicality. Asterisk. Now you are wearing 3 layers of clothing, a linen undertunic against your skin, a plain wool tunic for warmth, and a dyed wool tunic for color and status. You are a walking testament to the natural world around you. You wear the flax from the field, the fleece from the sheep, and the crushed leaves of the woad plant. Nothing is synthetic. Everything is organic, biodegradably, and the product of immense, patient labor. Asterisk, one of the most quirky and lesser-known details about natural dyeing is its sheer unpredictability. The exact same recipe might produce different shades depending on the time of year the plant was harvested, the mineral content of the water, or the pH of the dye bath. Every batch was unique. Your blue tunic is not just a blue tunic. It is the physical record of a specific day, a specific pot, a specific set of conditions. It is one of a kind. You smooth down the front, feeling the texture of the 3 layers working together. You feel warm, protected, and just a little bit fancy. The sun is climbing higher now, and its light is beginning to fill the smoky longhouse with a brighter, more optimistic glow. The day is waiting. Asterisk, asterisk. Now dressed in your layers of linen and wool, you are part of the quiet, unfolding tapestry of the longhouse. The initial sleepiness has faded, replaced by the gentle hum of a household coming to life. The air is still thick with smoke, but now, it's mixed with the savory scent of porridge bubbling over the central fire. The single beam of light from the smoke hole has widened, and the gloom has retreated to the corners. And in one of those corners, a new sound joins the morning symphony. It's a rhythmic, percussive sound, a soft thump, a pause, then a woody clack, followed by a gentle sliding noise. Asterisk thump, clack, slide. Asterisk it's a sound as familiar and comforting as the crackle of the fire, the sound of creation. Asterisk you are drawn toward it, your soft leather-soled shoes making no noise on the packed earth. There, standing against the wall, is the source of the sound, the loom. It's an enormous upright frame of dark, smooth wood, leaning against the timber wall. At a slight angle, it looks less like a tool and more like a piece of minimalist furniture, a gateway to nowhere. Two tall, upright posts are connected at the top by a crossbeam, from which hangs a shimmering waterfall of taut, vertical threads. This is the warp. The threads stretch all the way down to the floor, where they are gathered into small bunches and tied too heavy. Rounded weights that keep them perfectly tensioned. The weights, a collection of fist-sized donut-shaped pieces of baked clay and a few carefully grooved stones, hover just inches above the ground. A silent, stony flock. Asterisk, presiding over this strange instrument is your grandmother. She stands before the loom, her body swaying in a slow, hypnotic rhythm that perfectly matches the sounds you heard. She is not rushing. This is not work to be hurried. It is a process, as old and patient as the seasons. Her focus is absolute, her movements economical and graceful. She is weaving, creating fabric from thread, inch by painstaking inch. Asterisk you watch, mesmerized, as she completes a cycle. With one hand, she pulls forward a wooden rod that is cleverly looped around every second thread in the warp. This action separates the threads, creating a narrow horizontal opening in the shimmering curtain of yarn. This opening is called the shed. With her other hand, she takes a simple wooden stick wrapped with a thick, blue-dyed woolen yarn. Same blue as your new tunic hand passes it smoothly through the shed, from one side of the loom to the other. The weft thread is now in place. Then, she picks up what looks like a long, flat wooden sword, its edges rounded and polished smooth from a lifetime of use. She inserts this weaving sword into the shed, and with a single, sharp, upward motion, thump, she beats the new weft thread firmly up against the cloth that has already been woven above it. The fabric grows by the width of a single thread. Finally, she lets go of the heddle rod, clack, and the threads fall back into place, ready for the next cycle. Asterisk, thump, clack, slide. Asterisk, asterisk, this is the warp-weighted loom, a design that has existed in this part of the world for thousands of years. It's a beautifully simple, incredibly effective piece of technology. The woven cloth is not collected on a roller at the bottom, as with modern looms. Instead, it is slowly, painstakingly built from the top down, and the finished fabric is wound up around the top beam as it grows. It's a slow, physical process. To create enough fabric for a single tunic like yours might take weeks of steady, focused work. Asterisk, this is one of the great certainties of history. This is how your clothes were made. But a question that historians and archaeologists still ponder is the social status of the work itself. It was overwhelmingly performed by women, the mistresses of the household. The sagas are filled with references to weaving. It was considered a noble and essential skill, a sign of a well-run and prosperous home. A powerful woman was not just one who had a wealthy husband. She was one who managed the production of textiles for her entire household, ensuring everyone was clothed and that there was a surplus of fabric to be used for trade. Did this control over textile production give women a unique form of economic power and agency? Or was it simply a domestic burden, an endless and expected chore? Looking at your grandmother's focused expression, it seems less like a burden and more like a form of quiet, creative authority. Asterisk, you notice the little details. Her hands, though weathered, move with a deftness and precision that is captivating. On the floor beside her is a basket filled with more yarn, some on spindles, some wound into balls. This is her palette. She could, if she chose, introduce new colors, weaving stripes, or simple geometric patterns into the cloth. The famous and incredibly complex patterns we sometimes associate with this era were likely made on smaller, more specialized looms, but even on this large machine, a skilled weaver could create beautiful, practical cloth, a quirky little detail. Is that often the only part of these huge wooden looms to survive the centuries are the humble loom weights? Archaeologists find them in the remains of longhouses, sometimes in neat rows where a loom collapsed in a fire, its ghost still visible in the alignment of the stones. The number of weights can even tell them how wide the loom was, giving a ghostly impression of the fabrics of the past. Asterisk, you look from the growing expanse of blue fabric on the loom to the blue tunic you are wearing. Suddenly, it's not just a piece of clothing, it is a repository of time. You can see the hours of your grandmother's life woven directly into its fibers, the patient spinning of the yarn, the smelly magic of the woad dye pot, and now, the slow, rhythmic dance of the loom. The tunic feels heavier, not in weight, but in meaning. It is a shield, not just against the cold, but against the endless, pressing needs of survival. It is a product of skill, patience, and community. Asterisk, your grandmother senses you watching. She doesn't stop her work, but she turns her head slightly and gives you a small, knowing smile. The rhythm is unbroken. Asterisk, thump, clack, slide. Asterisk, the sound follows you as you turn and walk back toward the center of the longhouse. Its steady, creative heartbeat fading back into the general, comforting hum of the morning. You feel put together, but not quite complete. The 3 layers of your clothing are resting on your shoulders, but they are still just loose tubes of fabric. The keyhole neckline of your blue outer tunic is open, a V-shape of undyed wool and creamy linen showing from the layers beneath. It's functional, but a brisk walk or a gust of wind would be revealing. This is a world before buttons, a distant future that hasn't even been imagined yet. Zippers are the stuff of pure science fiction. Here, in this smoky, practical reality, you need something solid, something beautiful, something sharp. Asterisk, you turn to a small, carved wooden box that sits on the larger clothing chest. This isn't for bulky textiles. This is for the small, precious things. Lifting the lid, you see a collection of personal items nestled on a scrap of soft rabbit fur. A comb made of bone, a polished stone, and there, glinting in the dim light, a piece of your brooch, or, more accurately, a large and very handsome pin. Asterisk, you pick it up. The first thing you notice is its weight. It feels substantial in your palm, cool and solid. It's a ringed pin, a beautifully simple and effective design. A thick, sturdy bronze pin, about the length of your hand, is attached to a loose, freely moving ring of the same metal. The head of the pin, the part that remains visible, is flattened and decorated with a simple pattern of stamped circles and lines. It's not the ostentatious, jewel-encrusted treasure of a great jarl, but it's a fine piece of craftsmanship. The bronze has a deep, golden brown patina from age and use, but the edges still catch the light, glowing with a soft warmth. Asterisk, this little object is your all-purpose fastener. It is, in essence, the original safety pin, just version 1.0, without the convenient safety clasp, a bit more risk, a bit more style. Its job is to hold your world together, or at least your neckline. You take the pin and gather the fabric at your throat, pulling the edges of the keyhole neckline together. You pinch the thick material, the 2 layers of wool, and the 1 layer of linen, to a sturdy bunch. Then, carefully, you push the sharp point of the pin through the fabric. Asterisk, it doesn't slide through effortlessly. This is thick, tough, homespun wool. It takes a firm, steady pressure. You feel the point pass through the blue layer, then the undyed layer, then the softer linen, and finally out the other side. Now for the clever part. You take the loose ring, which is currently hanging behind the fabric, and pull it over the point of the pin. Then you let go. The tension of the fabric holds the ring in place, and the ring, in turn, stops the pin from ever sliding back out. It's a simple, elegant, and incredibly secure mechanism. Your tunic is now fastened. Asterisk, you touch the cool metal at your throat. It feels secure, a small point of reassuring weight. This brooch is more than just a fastener, of course. It's a statement. Metalwork is expensive. The raw materials, copper and tin, to make the bronze had to be mined, smelted, and traded. A skilled smith had to then take that precious metal and work it, heating, hammering, and shaping it into this beautiful, functional object. Your simple pin is a visible sign of your family's status. It's not shouting, but it's speaking clearly. It says you can afford not just colorful dyes, but crafted metal. It's the ancient equivalent of leaving a nice watch on the table. Asterisk. This is a well-established historical fact. The style of brooches and pins found in graves are one of the key ways archaeologists date sites and understand the identity and wealth of the people buried there. Women, for instance, often wore pairs of large, oval-shaped tortoise brooches on their shoulders to hold up an apron-like dress, with strands of glass beads sometimes strung between them. Men used powerful penannular brooches to fasten their heavy cloaks. Your ringed pin is a more unisex, everyday item, but it is part of that same language of personal adornment. Asterisk, but here's a quirky, lesser-known detail that speaks volumes about the practical mindset of the time. The pin on your brooch is sharp enough to go through the thick wool, but it's not too sharp. A good smith would know not to hone it to a razor's edge. Why? Because the fabric it's holding together is immensely valuable. A pin that was too sharp would risk snagging and tearing the threads of the painstakingly woven textile. The ideal pin was one that would part the fibers rather than cut them. It's a tiny, almost invisible detail. A perfect balance of form and function that shows a deep respect for the materials. Asterisk. And this raises a question that historians still debate. Who were these smiths? Were they settled artisans, living in larger trading towns like Burka or Hidibi, making their wares for a local market? Or were they itinerant craftsmen, traveling from farmstead to farmstead with their tools on their back, offering their services in exchange for food, lodging, or silver? Perhaps it was both. You try to picture the man who made your pin, his face lit by the glow of the forge, his hands confidently shaping the hot metal. You'll never know his name, but you hold his work in your hand every single day. The patterns he stamped into the metal, those simple circles and lines, also hold a quiet mystery. Were they just decoration, or did they mean something? Were they protective symbols? A maker's mark? A story we can no longer read. Asterisk, the brooch is now a part of your outfit. It's a focal point, a small piece of art and engineering that completes your look. You feel the security of the fastened neckline, the cool, solid weight of the bronze against your chest. You are warm, you are colorful, and now you are secure. The world outside the longhouse awaits, and you are, finally, properly dressed for it. Asterisk, asterisk, now that your clothing is fastened and secure. Your attention turns from the larger project of getting dressed to the finer details of being presentable. You are not a wild barbarian from a lurid fantasy novel. You are a member of a society that, in its own way, values order, cleanliness, and a tidy appearance. The longhouse might be smoky and communal, but personal grooming is a private, quiet ritual. You walk back to the small wooden box on the chest, the one that held your brooch. The other items resting on the soft fur lining are just as important. Asterisk, you pick up a small, delicate object. It looks like a miniature toolkit, all strung together on a twisted ring of bronze, like a janitor's keys from a dollhouse. It's your personal grooming set. This isn't a luxury, it's an everyday necessity. The central piece is a pair of tweezers. They are made of a single strip of bronze, expertly bent in the middle to create tension. With the two ends hammered flat and precisely aligned, you test them, pinching them together. They work perfectly. They are for plucking stray hairs, removing splinters, an inevitable part of a life lived around wood door, dealing with any other small, annoying imperfection. Asterisk, next to the tweezers, hangs a small, slender pick. It's about the length of your little finger, with a tiny spoon-like scoop at one end. This is an ear spoon. It's a tool for cleaning wax from your ears, a surprisingly common find in archaeological digs from this period. It speaks to a level of bodily care that feels both intimate and slightly odd from a modern perspective. It's a solution to a universal problem, crafted with the same care as a piece of jewelry. Owning one was as normal as owning a knife. Asterisk, the third item on the ring is a mystery tool. It's a small, pointed metal rod. What was it for? This is a question that tickles the minds of historians. Some suggest it was a nail cleaner, for tidying under fingernails after a day of work. Others propose it was a scribing tool for making marks on wax tablets, though there's little evidence for that in a domestic setting. A more playful theory is that it was simply a general-purpose poker and prober, the Viking Age equivalent of that one paperclip on your desk. You use for everything from opening packages to pressing tiny reset buttons, whatever its official purpose. It was clearly useful enough to earn a permanent place on this essential little kit. Asterisk. You set the grooming tools down and pick up the most important item in the box, your comb. It's a beautiful object, the centerpiece of your daily routine. It's a composite comb, meaning it's made from several different pieces artfully joined together. The teeth of the comb are cut from plates of deer antler, which is both strong and slightly flexible, perfect for moving through thick hair without snapping. These plates are sandwiched between two long, connecting side plates made of polished bone, which form the spine of the comb. The whole assembly is held together by a series of small, dark rivets, probably made of iron or bronze. Asterisk, the bone spine is decorated with a simple but elegant pattern of incised lines and dots, a style known as dot and circle. It's a pattern found on countless objects from this era, a familiar visual language. The comb feels solid and smooth in your hand, its surface is worn to a gentle polish through years of use. It has a satisfying heft. This is not a flimsy piece of disposable plastic. It is a durable, handcrafted tool that was built to last a lifetime, and perhaps even be passed down through generations. Asterisk, you begin to comb your hair. It's long and thick, and a bit tangled from a night of sleep on a straw mattress. You work patiently, starting from the ends and moving slowly upward, untangling the knots. The antler teeth move through your hair with a soft, scratching sound. This simple act of combing is about more than just tidiness. It's a small act of order in a world that can often feel chaotic. It's about hygiene, too. A well-combed head of hair is less likely to harbor lice and other unwelcome guests, a very real concern in the close quarters of the longhouse. Asterisk. Your hair is now combed, a smooth, orderly curtain falling down your back. But leaving it loose like this isn't very practical. It would get in your eyes while you work, catch in the wind, or worse, get tangled in a tool or dipped in the stew pot. A tidy person needs a tidy hairstyle. And much like clothing, hairstyles in your world are about more than just keeping hair out of your face. They are a language, a subtle way of communicating status, marital stage, and even occupation. You are about to style your identity for the day. Asterisk, you pick up the comb again. Its familiar weight, a comfort in your hand. The task now is to bind your hair into one of the accepted, practical styles of your time. For a woman, a common and respectable choice is a long braid, or perhaps two. Another popular style, seen on many carvings and figurines from the period, involves twisting the hair up into a neat knot or bun at the nape of the neck or the back of the head, sometimes covered with a small cap or a piece of cloth. This is a particularly secure and sensible option for a day of hard work. Asterisk, you decide on a single, sturdy braid. You gather your hair at the back of your head, the thick mass of it cool and heavy in your hands. You deftly separate it into 3 equal sections. Then, the familiar rhythmic work begins. Left over center, right over center, left over center. Your fingers know this dance by heart. You've been braiding your own hair, and the hair of your siblings and mother, since you were a small child. It's a movement that is embedded in your muscle memory, as natural as walking. You keep the weave tight and even, creating a thick, strong plate that will hold its shape throughout the day. When you reach the end, you need to secure it. You don't have elastic ties. Instead, you take a small, colorful strip of woven wool braid band, perhaps dyed with that sunny yellow weld, and wrap it tightly round the end of the braid, tying it off with a firm knot. The braid now hangs down your back, a thick, tidy rope of hair, its end marked by a cheerful splash of color. Asterisk, for men, the options were just as varied and meaningful. While the stereotypical image is one of wild, untamed manes, archaeological evidence and contemporary descriptions suggest a much greater concern for grooming. Long hair was common, but it was often styled. A popular look seems to have been long in the back, but with the fringe and sides cut shorter, a style that some have cheekily nicknamed the Viking mullet. Braids were also very common for men, as were ponytails. And then there was the beard. A well-groomed beard was a sign of masculinity and honor. Beards were combed, trimmed, and sometimes even elaborately braided or tied with small metal rings. A man's beard was a source of pride, and to insult it was a grave offense. Asterisk, this is a well-established historical fact. Depictions from the period, such as the famous Oseberg tapestry and various carved figures, consistently show people with carefully arranged hair. Statuettes of the gods, like the small figure of Freyr found in Sweden, show him with a neat, pointed beard and well-groomed, swept-back hair. These weren't scruffy people. They were people who understood that their hair, like their clothing and jewelry, was a canvas for self-expression and a key part of their social presentation. Asterisk. But here is where a fascinating historical debate rages on. What about the really elaborate styles? Some sagas and poems hint at incredibly complex braids and knots, and some archaeological finds, like the Herby hoard from Denmark, include tiny, delicate gold spirals that archaeologists believe were woven into the hair or beard as a form of glittering adornment. Were these styles for special occasions only? For rituals and feasts? Or did some high-status individuals walk around on a daily basis with gold thread in their beards? We can only guess at the sheer amount of time and effort that would have gone into creating and maintaining such a look. It suggests a world with enough leisure time and social competition for a kind of follicular arms race to develop. Asterisk, a quirky, lesser-known detail comes from the other side of the North Sea. English chroniclers of the period often complained about the obsessive grooming habits of the Norsemen who had settled in England. The 13th century chronicler John of Wallingford grumbled that the Viking men were far too popular with the local Anglo-Saxon noblewomen because they insisted on combing their hair every day, bathing every Saturday, and changing their clothes often. He saw their tidiness as a form of decadent, almost unfair seduction. It's a wonderfully human complaint. He wasn't mad because they were fierce warriors. He was mad because they were well-groomed, smelled better than his compatriots, and were stealing all the attention. Asterisk, you give your finished braid a gentle tug. It feels secure, pulled neatly away from your face. Your head feels lighter, more balanced. You are ready to see and be seen. The social part of your morning preparation is now complete. Your layers of clothing signal your family's competence, your brooch their wealth, your combed hair, your personal discipline, and your neat braid, your readiness for the day. Every choice, from the color of your tunic to the style of your hair, has been a quiet broadcast of who you are and where you fit into the small, interconnected world of the longhouse and the settlement beyond. The fire in the central hearth is now burning brightly, and the smell of cooking is thick and inviting. It's almost time to break your fast. Asterisk, the domestic rituals are complete. Your hair is braided, your grooming tools are put away, and your tunic is fastened. Its blue color a satisfying patch of sky in the smoky gloom of the longhouse. The air is now thick with the savory, nutty smell of oat porridge, and the sounds from the central hearth have shifted from the gentle crackle of a new fire to the happy bubbling of a communal breakfast. But before you join the others on the benches to eat, a task calls to you from outside. Perhaps you need to check on the animals, or fetch fresh water from the stream. The world beyond the heavy wooden door is waking up, and you must join it. Asterisk, as you move toward the entrance, you feel a distinct change in the air. The deep, radiant warmth of the fire pit gives way to a creeping coolness. A thin, insistent draft snakes under the door, carrying the scent of damp earth, cold stone, and the sharp, clean promise of the morning air. Your 3 layers are warm, but they are not enough for the briskness of a Scandinavian morning. You need your final, most important piece of armor against the cold. You need your cloak. Asterisk, it isn't folded in a chest. A garment this essential, this frequently used, is kept at the ready. It hangs from a thick, wooden peg driven into one of the massive upright posts that supports the longhouse roof. You reach up and lift it down. The weight of it is the first thing that strikes you. It's immense. This is not a light, fashionable coat. It is a heavy, utilitarian rectangle of wool, a wearable blanket designed for survival. It is probably the single largest and most valuable piece of textile your family owns. Asterisk, you unfold it, the thick fabric making a soft, heavy humph in the quiet air. It's a vast expanse of dark, undyed wool, perhaps the deep, rich brown of a black sheep's natural fleece. You run your hand over its surface. The side that will face inward is a dense, flat weave, familiar and comforting, but the outer surface is something else entirely. It is a thick, shaggy pile of looped and knotted yarn, deliberately woven into the fabric to create a deep, bristly texture that mimics the fur of an animal. This is a special kind of cloak, a Verarfelder, prized for its incredible ability to shed rain and snow. The shaggy outer layer traps air, creating a powerful barrier of insulation, and the natural lanolin in the wool makes the water bead up and roll off, just as it would from the back of a sheep in a storm. Asterisk, you swing the heavy rectangle of wool around your body. The sheer size of it is encompassing. It drapes over both of your shoulders and falls all the way to your calves. The weight settles, a reassuring pressure that immediately makes you feel more grounded, more secure. You pull the edges forward, wrapping yourself in a cocoon of personal warmth. The cloak smells of wood smoke, of lanolin, and of countless rainy days. It is the scent of every journey you have ever taken outside the relative safety of these walls. Asterisk, but a giant woolen rectangle is not a garment on its own. It needs to be secured. Your small, decorative ringed pin at your throat is not nearly strong enough for this job. You need something with more authority. From another, smaller peg, you take your cloak pin. It is a formidable piece of bronze, a penannular brooch. It's a C-shaped ring of thick metal with a long, heavy pin hinged at the back. It's a piece of engineering designed to hold fast against a gale force wind. Asterisk here. You make a conscious, practical decision. You gather the edges of the cloak on your right shoulder. This is a well-established custom. As a right-handed person, fastening the cloak on your dominant side leaves your right arm completely free and It can swing a tool, carry a bucket, or if the need should ever arise, draw a weapon without being tangled in the folds of heavy wool. This is a simple, practical fact of life. Asterisk, the historical debate, however, lies in the interpretation of this fact. Do you fasten it this way, purely for everyday convenience, so you can chop wood more easily? Or is it a subtle, constant declaration of readiness, a reminder to yourself and others that you live in a world where a free sword arm is a wise precaution? Perhaps the two are inseparable. In your world, practicality and preparedness are the same thing. Asterisk. You pull the heavy wooden door open, and the world rushes in. The air is crisp and cold, a stark contrast to the smoky warmth of the longhouse. It smells of wet grass, pine needles, and the salty temps of a distant sea. The sky is a pale, luminous gray, the sun still a low, gentle presence behind a thin veil of clouds. The sounds of the settlement are clearer now, the bleating of sheep, the distant clang of a hammer on an anvil, the cheerful shouts of children already at play. You step out onto the damp earth, your cloak settling around you like a protective shell. Your upper body is perfectly attired, but now your attention turns downward, to your legs. Asterisk, this is where things get surprisingly complicated. Welcome to the great Viking trouser debate. One of the most hotly contested and surprisingly passionate topics in the world of historical clothing reconstruction. What, exactly, are you wearing on your legs? The answer is far from simple, and the evidence is frustratingly ambiguous. You look down at your own legwear. They are a pair of simple, practical trousers, or bricker, made of a sturdy, undyed wool, probably a tough, tabby-woven cloth similar to your inner tunic. Asterisk, your particular pair are of a loose, almost baggy cut. They are gathered at the waist by a simple drawstring, a long leather thong threaded through a folded-over waistband. The legs are wide and comfortable, allowing for a full range of movement whether you're climbing the rigging of a ship, striding across a field, or squatting by the fire. They are tucked into the tops of your shoes or held close to your shins with simple leg wraps. But the fabric around your thighs is generous and forgiving. This style is comfortable, easy to make, and doesn't require complex tailoring. It's the sensible, everyday choice. Asterisk, but you know there are other options. Your uncle, who fancies himself a bit of a traveler and a man of fashion, wears trousers of a dramatically different cut. His are much more fitted, almost like a pair of medieval hose, clinging tightly to the shape of his legs. This style requires a more sophisticated pattern, probably using fabric cut on the bias to give it a bit of natural stretch. It uses less fabric, but it takes far more skill to create a pair that fits well without splitting at the seams. His are dyed a deep, earthy brown, and he wears them with a flourish. A quiet statement of his worldliness, asterisk so, which is more historically accurate. This is the core of the debate. Artistic depictions from the period are all over the place. Some picture stones and carvings from Gotland show figures in what appear to be very wide, pleated, almost skirt-like trousers, often called Russ trousers, due to their association with Norse traders in the East. They look dramatic and impressive, but would they be practical for everyday farm work? Other depictions, like figures on the Oseberg tapestry, seem to show much narrower, more fitted legwear. Written sources are equally vague. They mention trousers, but they rarely, if ever, describe the cut. It's as if they were so commonplace that it never occurred to anyone to write down the details. Asterisk, the archaeological evidence is, as always, fragmentary. The most famous find is the pair of trousers recovered from the Thorsberg bog in Denmark. While they are technically from a few centuries before the Viking Age proper, they provide a fascinating glimpse into the tailoring of the time. They are a surprisingly complex garment with attached feet, belt loops, and a sophisticated, multi-piece construction. They suggest a tradition of skilled tailoring that far exceeds the simple two tubes of fabric sewn together model. So, the evidence points in multiple directions. The likely truth is that there was no single, universal Viking trouser. It was probably a matter of regional variation, personal preference, and wealth. A farmer in Norway might wear a simple, baggy pair, while a wealthy trader in Burka might sport a much more fashionable, close-fitting style, perhaps made from imported, high-quality wool. And then there's the quirky, lesser-known detail of the codpiece asterisk, or rather, the lack thereof. Many of the historical trouser patterns, particularly the baggier ones, seem to be constructed with a large, square gusset in the crotch. This provided excellent freedom of movement, but it also meant there was no central front seam. This raises a rather delicate question that historians, being a generally polite bunch, don't often dwell on. How did a man answer the call of nature? The most likely answer is that they simply untied the drawstring and pulled the whole front of the trousers down. It's a simple, practical solution that requires no complex buttons or flies. It's a small, intimate detail of daily life that reminds you how different their relationship with clothing and privacy was. Asterisk, you give your own trousers a slight hitch, adjusting the drawstring at your waist. They feel comfortable and familiar. They are not a fashion statement. They are a tool. They protect your legs from thistles and scratches. They provide a crucial layer of warmth, and they allow you to move freely as you go about your day. The wool is a bit coarse against your skin, but you are used to it. Or, perhaps, you're wearing a pair of linen undertrousers. Or brise, a simple, shorts-like undergarment to provide a softer layer against the skin. That, too, is part of the great debate. Another ghost of a garment that has left very few traces behind. Asterisk, you take a step forward. The sturdy wool of your trousers moving with you. Whether baggy or tight, simple or complex, they are a fundamental part of your identity. They mark you as a Norseman, distinct from the tunic-wearing peoples to the south. In your world, a man wears trousers. It is a simple, undeniable fact. The only real question is, what kind? You leave the debate to the scholars of the future and walk out into the soft, morning light of the settlement. Asterisk, asterisk, you've stepped out of the longhouse and into the living world of the settlement. The ground beneath you is not paved or tarmacked. It is a mixture of damp, packed earth, scattered gravel, and the occasional patch of stubborn, green grass. It's uneven, unpredictable, and in the early morning, slick with dew. Your final piece of essential clothing is what connects you to this ground, the very foundation of your ability to move through your world safely and efficiently. It's time to consider your shoes. Asterisk, you look down at your feet. You are wearing a pair of simple, low-cut leather shoes, what a historian might call turn shoes. They are soft, almost like a thick pair of socks with a sole. They are not rigid, heavy, or hobnailed. They are designed to be flexible, to allow your foot to bend and feel the contours of the terrain beneath you. Each step is a quiet conversation between your foot and the earth. Asterisk, you take a few steps, feeling the gentle give of the leather. The shoes are made from a single piece of cowhide for the upper, which is cleverly stitched to a slightly thicker piece for the sole. The name turnshoe comes from the peculiar way they are constructed. The upper is stitched to the sole with the leather inside out. Then, in a tricky but crucial final step, the entire shoe is turned right side out, which pops the seams to the inside, protecting the stitching from wear and tear against the rough ground. This creates a neat, seamless appearance on the outside and a small raised ridge on the inside. You can feel that ridge under the edge of your foot, a constant, subtle reminder of the clever craftsmanship involved. Asterisk, your shoes are a warm, nutty brown, the natural color of vegetable tanned leather. The tanning process itself was a long and pungent affair. involving soaking the hides for months in a pit filled with water and crushed oak bark. The tannins in the bark are what transformed the raw, perishable skin into a durable, water-resistant material. You can still smell the faint, earthy, slightly acidic scent of the tanning liquor if you put your nose close to the leather. It's the smell of preservation, of patience. The shoes are fastened with a simple leather thong that threads through a couple of holes on the top and ties in a simple knot. There are no buckles, no complex lacing systems, just a straightforward, functional closure. The style is low, barely covering your ankle. This is the common, everyday design, perfect for work around the farmstead. But you know that, just like trousers, there are more elaborate options. For a journey, or for colder weather, you might have a pair of ankle-high boots, constructed in a similar way, but with a higher cut to provide more protection and warmth. Some archaeological finds have even revealed shoes with beautiful, decorative stitching, or edges that have been carefully scalloped or cut into patterns. A shoe wasn't just a shoe. It could also be a small canvas for personal expression. This is a well-established historical fact. The turn shoe method of construction was the dominant form of footwear in this part of the world for well over 1,000 years. Archaeologists have found thousands of them, preserved in the waterlogged soils of trading towns like York, Dublin, and Hiddeby. The sheer number and variety of these finds have allowed scholars to create a detailed typology of styles, sometimes so precise they can trace the evolution of shoe fashion from one decade to the next. You are now a complete picture of everyday Norse life, from the soft leather of your turn shoes to the heavy wool of your cloak. You are wrapped in a world of natural, handcrafted materials. Every item you wear is a story of the land, the animals, and the patient hands that worked the loom and the tanning pit. You feel warm, secure, and utterly normal. But then, as you turn to walk towards the communal cooking fire, a flicker of something extraordinary catches your eye. Your mother is standing near the fire, stirring the bubbling porridge with a long wooden spoon, and around her neck, tucked just inside the collar of her own dyed tunic, is a thin, shimmering strip of fabric. In the dancing firelight, it glows with a soft, almost liquid luster. The color is a deep, impossible blue, far richer and more vibrant than the honest, earthy blue of your woad-dyed tunic. It moves with a life of its own, rippling like water as she breathes. It is silk. You pause, just for a moment, to admire it. In your world of wool and linen, silk is the stuff of dreams. It is an alien substance, a whisper from a world so far away, it might as well be on the moon. It is impossibly smooth, impossibly light, and impossibly strong. To touch it is to feel something that has no business being in your cold, northern land. It is the physical embodiment of the exotic. Where did this tiny scrap of luxury come from? Its journey to your small, smoky settlement is a saga in itself. The thread was spun from the cocoon of a silkworm, a creature that lives only in the farthest, most unknowable corners of the world, in a place called China. From there, it was woven into cloth and began a journey of thousands of miles, passed from merchant to merchant, across deserts and mountains, along the great river systems of the East. Perhaps it traveled the legendary Silk Road, carried by camel caravan to the great markets of the Byzantine Empire, in the golden city of Constantinople, there, in the bustling bazaars of that almost mythical place. A Norse trader of Varangian guardsmen, perhaps, who had served the emperor and was now returning home with his fortune, might have purchased it. He would have packed it carefully, protecting it from moisture and mildew on the long, perilous sea voyage north, back up the great rivers, across the Baltic Sea, and finally, to this fjord. Or maybe it took a different route, traded north from the caliphates in the south, passed from Arab merchants to Rus traders, a small piece of shimmering value exchanged for amber, furs, or slaves. However it arrived, It is here now, a tiny, 4-inch wide strip of fabric that represents a connection to the entire known world. Your mother doesn't have a full tunic of silk. That would be a level of wealth reserved for kings and legendary heroes. What she has is a small, precious piece of it, used as a decorative flourish. It might be a headband, a ribbon to tie up her braid, or, as she wears it, a decorative facing on the inside of her neckline, a flash of secret luxury that only shows when she moves a certain way. Asterisk, this is a well-established historical fact, confirmed by archaeology. Small fragments of silk, often cut into narrow strips, have been found in numerous high-status Viking Age graves, particularly in trading centers like Birka in Sweden. The famous Oseberg ship burial contained a wealth of textile fragments, including more than 50 different types of silk, some from Byzantium, some from even further east. This proves that these long-distance trade networks were not just theoretical, they were real, and their most luxurious products made it all the way to the northernmost edges of Europe. Asterisk, a quirky, lesser-known detail is how this silk was often used. The Vikings were incredibly resourceful, even with their luxury goods. They were not afraid to cut up these precious imported textiles. A larger piece of patterned silk, known as a samite, might be carefully unpicked. Its valuable gold or silver threads extracted to be melted down or reused. The remaining plain silk would then be cut into thin strips and used as trim, as applique on a woolen tunic, or to wrap the hilts of swords. They were deconstructing one form of luxury to create another, more personal one. They were not passive consumers. They were active curators of valuable materials. Asterisk, this practice raises a question that textile historians still puzzle over. Was this just about economics and recycling, or was there something more symbolic at play? By cutting up a piece of foreign cloth and integrating it into their own garments, were they in some way taming it, absorbing its power and prestige, and making it Norse? Was it a way of saying, we have traveled to the great centers of the world, and we have brought back their treasures to adorn ourselves? It's a fascinating thought that fashion could be a form of conquest. Asterisk, you watch your mother turn from the fire, and the silk at her collar catches the light again. It is a tiny, almost insignificant detail in the grand scheme of the morning. And yet, it changes everything. It is a reminder that your world, as isolated as it might sometimes feel, is not an island. You are at the end of a very long and very thin thread that connects your small settlement to the vast, glittering, and almost unimaginable world beyond. The porridge might be local, the wool might be from your own sheep, but the dream of faraway places is right here, woven into the fabric of your family's life. It is a quiet promise of the possibilities that lie beyond the horizon. Asterisk. Asterisk, as you finally move towards the fire to get your share of the morning porridge, another kind of light catches your eye. It isn't the liquid shimmer of silk, but a harder, more solid glint of metal. It comes from your father's arm. He is sitting on one of the low wooden benches that line the longhouse wall, sharpening a knife with a smooth, wet stone. As he works, his sleeve slides back, revealing a thick, heavy ring of twisted silver on his forearm. It is his arm ring, and it is as much a part of him as his beard or the calluses on his hands. Asterisk, you take your bowl of warm, steaming porridge and sit on the bench a little way down from him. The arm ring is a familiar sight, but you take a moment to really look at it. It is not a delicate piece of jewelry. It is a massive, substantial object, forged from several thick rods of silver that have been heated and twisted together into a heavy tapering cable, then bent into a C-shape to fit around his arm. The ends are hammered flat and stamped with a simple pattern. It is beautiful, but its beauty is one of strength and weight. It is a wearable hoard, a savings account made solid. Asterisk, this arm ring tells a story. Every gram of that silver was earned. Perhaps it was the payment for a successful trading voyage. Goods like furs and amber exchanged for a specified weight of precious metal in a bustling market town. Or maybe it was the spoils of a successful raid. A monastery's silver chalice melted down and reforged into this more practical, portable form. The sagas are full of stories of chieftains and kings rewarding their loyal followers with rings of gold and silver. To give a ring was a sign of favor and a bond of loyalty. To receive one was a mark of honor and a measure of your worth. Your father's ring is a physical record of his reputation, his journeys, and his allegiance. Asterisk. This is the well-established historical context of these objects. Arm rings, neck rings, and other forms of bullion jewelry were a cornerstone of the Viking Age economy, which was largely based on the weight of precious metals, not on coinage. The term for this system is a bullion economy. A transaction might be completed by literally cutting a piece off an arm ring and weighing it in a small set of portable scales. This is why archaeologists often find pieces of silver jewelry that have been deliberately chopped up, a phenomenon they call hack silver. Your father's arm ring is not just an ornament. It is his wallet, his bank, and a key part of his financial toolkit. Asterisk. But there is a quieter, more personal story being told here as well. You look at the other adornments people are wearing in the soft light of the longhouse. A young woman across the fire has a simple necklace of brightly colored glass beads, interspersed with a few beads of polished amber. Each bead is a small treasure. The glass was likely made in a workshop in a place like Hiddeby or Rib, while the amber, the fossilized resin of ancient trees, was gathered from the shores of the Baltic Sea. Her necklace is a collection of small joys, a personal and colorful statement. Asterisk. A quirky and lesser-known detail is the sheer variety and strangeness of some of the pendants that have been found. While Thor's hammers, Milnir, are the most famous and are found in great numbers, archaeologists have also discovered miniature chairs, probably representing a chieftain's high seat, miniature weapons, and even tiny, intricate metal buckets. What did these strange little objects signify? The chair might have been a symbol of loyalty to a specific leader. The tiny weapons, perhaps a wish for protection or success in battle. The bucket. Historians are still scratching their heads over that one. Perhaps it was a symbol of a prosperous household. Or maybe it had a meaning within a particular myth that has been lost to us. These small, personal charms open a window into a world of beliefs and symbols that we can only partially understand. Asterisk. This brings us to a deep and fascinating historical question. How much of this jewelry was purely decorative, and how much was deeply imbued with magical or religious meaning? When your father puts on his arm ring, does he see it only as a store of wealth, or does he also feel a connection to the great gift-giving chieftains of the sagas, participating in an ancient tradition of honor? Full from your breakfast, you feel a sense of warmth and contentment spread through you. The day is no longer a fresh, chilly promise, but a living reality. The longhouse is now a hive of gentle activity. Adults are gathering their tools, planning the day's labor, mending a fishing net, turning hay in the fields, working the forge. And weaving through this world of purposeful adult movement is another, entirely different kind of energy. It is the chaotic, joyful, and surprisingly well-dressed world of the children. Asterisk. You watch as a small boy, no more than 5 or 6 years old, darts past you, chasing after a wooden toy boat that he pulls on a string. He is, in essence, a miniature version of his father. He wears a small, knee-length, woolen tunic, dyed a cheerful, if slightly faded, shade of yellow. His trousers are made of a sturdy, undyed wool, and on his feet are tiny, perfectly formed leather turn shoes. He is not dressed in a special, simplified children's outfit. He is wearing a scaled-down replica of adult clothing. Asterisk. This is a fundamental and well-established aspect of historical childhood. The very concept of children's clothing as a distinct category did not really exist. From the moment they were out of swaddling clothes, children were dressed as small adults. Their garments were made from the same materials and the same styles, and with the same construction techniques as the clothes of their parents. A girl's tunic would be a shorter version of her mother's, perhaps worn with a simple apron dress. A boy's outfit mirrored his father's. This was not a lack of imagination. It was a deep and abiding practicality. Asterisk, you watch the boy trip over a loose floorboard, tumbling in a heap of yellow wool. He isn't hurt. He pushes himself up, brushes the dirt from his tunic, and continues his game without a second thought. His clothes are built for this. The wool is tough and resilient, able to withstand the endless cycle of running, falling, and climbing that defines a child's existence. The slightly loose cut allows for freedom of movement and, just as importantly, for growth. A tunic could be worn for several years, looking a bit like a dress at first, and slowly becoming a proper tunic as the child shot upward. Hems could be let down, and seams could be let out. In a world where every piece of fabric was precious, clothing was made to last. Asterisk, a quirky, lesser-known detail of this miniature world is the toys that have survived. Archaeologists have found a delightful array of Viking Age plaything. There are small wooden swords and shields, perfect for practicing the warrior arts. There are toy horses, carved from wood or bone. And there are those little wooden boats, like the one the boy is pulling. Sometimes so beautifully detailed, they look like scale models of real longships. These toys tell us that childhood was not just a period of work and apprenticeship. It was also a time for play, for imagination, and for rehearsing the roles they would one day fill as adults. The boy with his boat isn't just playing. He's learning to be a sailor. A girl arranging her dolls in a miniature longhouse is learning to be a household manager. Their play was their school. Asterisk. This raises a gentle philosophical question for historians of the family. By dressing children as miniature adults, did this society view them differently? Was childhood seen not as a separate, protected stage of life, as it is in the modern world, but simply as a period of becoming an adult, a kind of apprenticeship for life? The evidence is complex. On the one hand, their clothing and toys suggest a world where children were integrated into adult life from a very early age. They would have been present for all aspects of life in the longhouse: births, deaths, feasts, and famines. They would have had chores and responsibilities from the moment they could walk and understand instructions. Asterisk, on the other hand, the law codes of the time recognized children as a distinct legal class, with different rights and responsibilities from adults. And the sagas, while often bloody and dramatic, are filled with scenes of deep parental affection, of fathers mourning their sons and mothers fiercely protecting their daughters. It seems most likely that they lived in a middle ground. Childhood was a recognized and cherished phase, but it was one that was lived in the full, unfiltered view of the adult world. Their miniature clothes were a symbol of this. You are one of us, just smaller. Asterisk. You see a young girl sitting near her mother, who is mending a linen under tunic. The girl has a scrap of fabric and a bone needle of her own, and she is making clumsy, oversized stitches, mimicking her mother's graceful movements. Her tiny tunic is patched at the elbow, a neat square of a slightly different colored wool. This patch is not a sign of poverty, but a sign of care. It shows that the garment was valued enough to be repaired, its life extended. It is a small lesson in thrift and sustainability, learned without a single word being spoken. The children's clothes are a living classroom, teaching them the values of their world: practicality, resourcefulness, and the immense, irreplaceable value of a well-woven piece of cloth. Asterisk. The little boy with the boat now runs out the open door of the longhouse. His yellow tunic, a brief flash of sunlight against the gray morning. You smile. The future of the settlement is in good, sturdy, well-clothed hands. Asterisk, asterisk. The day unfolds in a rhythm as old as the seasons. There is work to be done in the fields, animals to tend, repairs to be made. You've spent the hours in purposeful activity, your clothing moving with you, protecting you, becoming a second skin. Your woolen tunic has kept you warm against the persistent breeze. Your leather shoes have molded to your feet, and your sturdy trousers have shrugged off thorns and dirt. But now, the light is beginning to fail. The sun, which never climbed very high in the sky, is now dipping towards the horizon, painting the clouds in soft shades of gray and pale orange. The air grows colder, and a familiar, comforting scent begins to fill the settlement once more. The smell of wood smoke, as the evening fires are built up. Inside the longhouse, the atmosphere is changing. The purposeful energy of the day is giving way to the gentle, winding down hum of the evening. The central fire is now a roaring, cheerful blaze, casting long, dancing shadows up to the high, dark rafters. It pushes back the gathering gloom and fills the vast room with a radiant, golden warmth. The air is thick with the savory smell of stew simmering in a great iron cauldron suspended over the flames. People gather on the benches, their faces lit by the fire, their voices low and relaxed. The day's labor is done. This is the time for storytelling, for mending tools, for the quiet companionship that fills the long hours between sunset and sleep. As the evening deepens and the meal is finished, a great yawn escapes you. Your body, tired from a day of physical work, is beginning to call for rest. It is time to reverse the process you began in the morning. It is time to shed the day's layers. You move back to your family's space on the raised wooden platform, back to the large clothing chest. The first thing to come off is the most formidable, your cloak. You unfasten the heavy penannular brooch on your shoulder, its bronze cool to the touch. The weight lifts, and you feel a sudden lightness. You carefully fold the vast rectangle of shaggy wool. This is not a garment to be thrown carelessly in a corner. You fold it neatly, ensuring the shaggy outer pile is protected, and you lay it across the top of the chest, where it will double as an extra blanket for the cold night ahead. Next, you remove your shoes. They are scuffed with dirt and damp from the wet grass. You take a piece of scrap wool, a rag that was once part of a tunic long ago, and you carefully wipe them clean. You rub a little bit of animal fat, perhaps lanolin or tallow, into the leather to keep it supple and water resistant. This is a crucial nightly ritual. Well cared for shoes will last for years. Neglected ones will crack and fall apart in a single season. You place them, clean and conditioned, under the bench, ready for the morning. Then comes the jewelry. The simple thong from your wrist, the heavy silver ring from your father's arm. These are placed in the small, carved wooden box for safekeeping. This is a consistent and archaeologically verified fact. People did not typically sleep in their jewelry. Hoards of buried treasure are often found containing rings and brooches, but skeletons in graves are rarely found wearing them, suggesting they were removed at night. Perhaps it was for comfort, or perhaps it was for security, to keep one's portable wealth safely stored away while sleeping in a communal space. You pull the ringed pin from the neck of your tunic, the fabric parts, and you remove your beautiful blue outer layer. You examine it for any new rips or stains from the day. Seeing none, you fold it with the same care you gave your cloak. Each fold is deliberate. You are smoothing out the story of the day, preparing the garment for the story of tomorrow. You place it inside the chest. You do the same with your trousers and your undyed woolen tunic. The chest is now a neat, layered repository of your identity. This careful folding and storage is more than just tidiness. It's a deep-seated habit born of necessity. A fascinating debate among textile historians is the question of moths and other pests. In a world without closets and chemical mothballs, how did they protect their precious woolen garments from being eaten? The answer likely lies in a combination of things. The smoky atmosphere of the longhouse, which would have acted as a natural pest deterrent. The use of aromatic herbs like bog myrtle packed among the clothes. You are ready for sleep. The great longhouse has fallen into a deep and profound quiet. The roaring fire has died down to a bed of glowing ruby-red embers, In the central pit, a single, warm heart pulsing softly in the immense darkness. The only light now is the faint, silvery glow of the moon, filtering down in a diffused, ghostly column through the smoke hole in the roof. The air is cool and still, thick with the comforting, ancient smells of wood smoke, warm bodies, and wool. The sounds are the intimate whispers of a sleeping household, the soft rustle of someone turning in their sleep, a quiet sigh, the slow rhythmic breathing of your family all around you. Asterisk, you climb onto the wooden sleeping platform, the familiar space that is your own small island in this communal sea. Your mattress of straw and fragrant heather rustles beneath you as you settle. It is not soft in a modern sense, but it is deeply comforting, conforming to your shape, holding the latent warmth of your body. In your thin linen undertunic, the cool night air raises a brief shiver on your skin, a signal that it's time for the final, most essential layer of all. Asterisk, you reach for the coverings folded at the foot of your sleeping space. The first is a heavy woolen blanket. It is woven from the same coarse, honest wool as your tunic, but it is a shaggy weave, thick and incredibly dense, designed not for drape, but for pure, unadulterated warmth. You pull it over you, and its weight is an immediate comfort, a gentle, reassuring pressure that calms your tired muscles. The wool instantly begins to trap your body heat, creating a pocket of personal warmth around you. The fabric is a little scratchy against your bare arms, but it's a familiar rustic texture. Asterisk, this blanket is a masterpiece of insulation. Its thick, fuzzy texture creates thousands of tiny air pockets, and it is this trapped air, more than the wool itself, that keeps you warm. This is a simple, well-understood principle of thermodynamics that your ancestors learned through thousands of years of trial and error. You are cocooning yourself in a layer of still, warm air, a perfect buffer against the chill of the northern night. Asterisk, but for the deepest cold, wool alone is sometimes not enough. You reach for the final piece of your sleeping arrangement, a magnificent animal fur. It might be a thick, soft sheepskin, its fleece deep and springy, or perhaps it is the hide of a reindeer, whose hollow hairs provide an almost unparalleled level of insulation. It could even be the rich, dark fur of a bear, a rare and powerful luxury. You pull this heavy, supple pelt over the woolen blanket. Asterisk, the fur adds another layer of weight and a profound sense of security. It drapes over you, conforming to every contour of your body, eliminating any stray drafts. The smooth, cool leather on the inside feels wonderful, a final barrier between you and the outside world. The fur on the outside is a shield against the deepest chill. The combination of the wool blanket beneath and the animal hide on top is a sleep system perfected over generations. A technology as refined and effective as any modern sleeping bag. Asterisk here. In the deep quiet of the night, a final historical debate presents itself. What was the exact nature of this bedding? While the sagas and archaeological finds confirm the use of wool blankets and fur pelts, some sources hint at even greater comfort. The famous Arab traveler Al-Tartushi, who visited the trading town of Hidabi, noted that even the poorer inhabitants had beds stuffed with feathers, and the Oseberg ship burial contained the remains of feather-filled pillows and even a proper duvet. Was this level of luxury a soft, down-filled comforter reserved only for the immensely wealthy, like the queen buried in the Oseberg ship, or was it more common than the evidence suggests? A simple comfort made from the down of local seabirds. You nestle your head into your own pillow, which is likely a simple sackcloth bag stuffed with straw, or perhaps a kinder, softer filling of wool fleece. It is a mystery you are too sleepy to solve. Asterisk, you are now perfectly cocooned, encased in linen, wool, and fur. You are as warm and secure as a bear hibernating in its den. A quirky detail of your sleeping arrangement is that you are probably sleeping with your head towards the central fire. Excavations of longhouses often show that the sleeping platforms were widest at the head and tapered towards the feet, suggesting people slept with their heads towards the main living area. It makes a kind of intuitive sense to be closer to the source of warmth and light, and to be facing the heart of the home even in sleep. Asterisk, you close your eyes. The darkness behind your eyelids is complete. You focus on the sounds around you. The slow, deep breathing of your father. The faint, whispery snore of an elder. The almost imperceptible crackle of a cooling ember in the hearth. These are the sounds of safety, of community, of a world at peace. You are not alone. You are one part of a larger, breathing organism. A family, a household, all sharing this single, sheltering roof. Your journey through the layers of the day is complete. You have been clothed, you have worked, and you have returned to this simple, essential state. You let go of the day's thoughts and drift, slowly and peacefully, into the deep, restorative darkness of the past. Asterisk, the journey of the day is over now, and the gentle, steady rhythm of the longhouse at night begins to match the rhythm of your own breathing. Let the soft, heavy weight of your own blankets be the weight of that warm, woolen covering, a gentle pressure that reassures and calms you. Feel the world outside your own window fade away, just as the cold, starry sky outside the longhouse seems a distant and unimportant thing. All that matters is this small, warm space you have created for yourself. A safe harbor in the quiet darkness. Asterisk, there is nothing more for you to do, nothing to prepare for, and nothing to remember. The story is told. The layers have been folded and put away. The fire has been banked for the night, its gentle embers a promise of warmth for the morning to come. You can allow your mind to drift, to float on the slow, deep breaths that carry you closer and closer to sleep. Imagine the stillness of that vast, dark room, the shared peace of a family at rest. There is a deep, unspoken trust in that silence, a sense of belonging that requires no words. Let that feeling of safety and belonging settle over you. You are right where you need to be, safe and sound. The night will hold you, and the morning will wait. Just rest now. Just sleep.